Chapter 5. So what do you think happened next? The weak exploited the strong. That is the law of it. That is the only law left when everything else is ash. They found the remains of my feast, the paste still streaked across my face, the bones with their crescent bite marks gnawed half through. And the raiders took a liking to me. I still remember the looks of horror in the eyes of the survivors. Their faces frozen like clay masks when they heard the raiders talk of why they were keeping me. That was a disdain I do not wish on anyone, not even an enemy. To be thought less than a thing, less than refuse, a betrayer, and simultaneously to be thought entertainment or livestock or plaything. To be spoken of in the same breath as hunger and barter and sport. If this was a normal story you might have read somewhere in the serialized tracks of the Bureaucratica, then perhaps I, the main character, would have bent my mind to a cunning escape. Perhaps I would have found some clever path through hell, gathered the broken survivors and led them to some semblance of hope. I will remind you now that I was fresh in my 7th year. My life, like all children's, was not mine to shape. It was in the hands of adults. In their fists. And the adults who held mine were men with faces blackened by radiation, teeth jagged as rusted nails, eyes lit by madness. And this was not a novel. This was Chandurax. So we were taken. After the raiders had eaten through the supplies and smashed the computers they could not operate, after they had turned that place of wires and glass and walls into a pit of ruin, we were taken. The end of our home was just another wreckage for them to dance upon. They left it as carrion for the rats. By the time we were hauled out of it, there were 7 of us left. They slung us like cattle across their bikes. Not seats, no. The midsection bent over a steel frame, head dangling inches from the ground, arms bound behind, legs lashed so that every bump, every stone, every seam in the cracked ferrocrete drove pain into the gut and bruised the ribs. They had no regard for our lives, nor any thought to how bones shattered under weight and vibration. I learned what it was to taste bile as each impact jarred the stomach and forced air from the lungs. The tunnels were black, blind, endless, and the engines roared through them like devils, filling that hollow dark with noise and fumes. During the trip they beat us into submission. Any movement, any sound, drew a fist or a boot. They spoke among themselves in a manner half language, half bark, crude and stripped of sense. Their words were not meant to carry meaning so much as to bruise the air. I caught fragments, jagged things that stuck in the air. Trade, yeah. Trade the little one. The kid. Strong bones. Don't crack like the others. Worth something. That one. Not meat. Not yet. Got legs on. See the way he don't fold? Not piss in blood like the rest. A burst of coughing laughter. Could be made into something. Teach him to bite proper. He grinned with malice. Nah, he's for the keeper. The game's keeper. When was the last time you seen a kid this young? The keeper likes oddities. Keeper pays in guns, in rounds, in drink. Not this piss will water. Keeper'll split us a reward good. He'll make sport of the little thing. Another voice, low and cracked, sturdy little bastard. The laughter rose again, wet and cruel. Yeah. He's a eater. A true eater. One of us already. Their talk rolled back and forth like dogs snarling over a bone. Every word another cut. They did not whisper. They wanted me to hear. They wanted the others to hear. The others were silent. Not by choice. Silence is what's left when the body has been made into a sack for pain and the mind floats above it like a balloon tethered by a fraying string. After a day and a half they gave me water. Only me. They shoved the others on. Let them lick the oily condensation off the tunnels if they could. Some did. Some didn't. As we rode I heard more. Snippets through the roar of engines. They planned to take me to some gathering place. A market of sorts. There was someone there called the Gameskeeper. My flesh stiffened at the sound of that name. They spoke it with reverence, with hunger. Like one might say prophet or god or butcher. We rode for 3 days. Nearly 3. And along the way the others dwindled. The raiders killed them as meat was needed. Flesh stripped and roasted on scavenged rods over chemical flame. The smell was unbearable. I refused the meat when they offered it to me. They did not like this. They watched me with grins and mutters, daring me to cave, daring me to fall to that same depth. But I could not. I would not. They drank blood like wine. They sucked marrow from bones and held skins whole, careful as tailors. They peeled them entire, folded them into neat rectangles like cloth, pressed them into bags that already dripped red from prior use. And they wore those skins, as if to become the dead they had slain. Faces upon faces. Masks over madness. Simple protection from the growing radiation as we climbed closer to the surface. You may wonder why I did not in those days rise up. Why I did not in some spark of childish bravery wrench a bike from its rider and flee into the dark. The thought never ceased in me. But my body was not able. The blows had broken me, inside and out. My ribs pressed with every breath like splintered wood. My arms hung swollen, nerves deadened from rope and strike. I could not even piss without help from gravity. So what I did was the only thing left to me. I turned inward. I fell into myself where the chorus waited and I began to ask questions. It came as a pressure behind the eyes, a taste of iron in the mouth. Then the text unrolled, cold, clinical. Profile access granted. Class, Skyburn Threnodist. Level, 1. Symbiosis status, active. The words glowed against the dark of my skull. They did not sound like the Raiders. They did not sound like any voice I had ever known. They were clearer, cleaner, as if language had been shorn of all its skin and left as polished bone. What's a threnodist? I asked aloud though my lips never moved. The chorus answered. Not with patience. Not with warmth. The way a current answers a swimmer. A threnodist is someone who writes or speaks a threnody, which is a song or poem of lamentation, especially for the dead. Base attributes. Vitality, 4, Grit, 6, Memory, 3, Perception, 3, Mercy, Error threshold acknowledged. Advanced attributes. Presence, 2, Resolve, 5, Attunement, 2, Role, Control. Support. Primary stats, Presence. Resolve. Attunement. Function, Weaponize grief. Fallout. Skyfire. The words meant nothing to me at first. They drifted. They echoed in my skull and left the air trembling. Why me? Why any of this? Why now? Seed accepted. Juvenile index. Caloric deficit. Network access, none. Local node, none. What do you mean none? Normal function, draw from network. Network, mycorrhiza spread across Bureaucratica. Nodes, absent on Chandurax. The word network stuck like a burr in the mind. I saw it then as a web, invisible threads stretching between stars. People with wires in their bones drinking power from a fungus that was neither alive nor dead. And here on Chandurax we were cut off. Stranded from it. Then how does it work here? Reward structure, remapped. Leveling, internal. Symbiote adapts host. Mutual defense. I did not know whether to laugh or retch. So you are fungus. Symbiote. Mutual pact. Host defense symbiote. Symbiote cultivates host. Its words were exact. A dog barking, yes, but barking with perfect rhythm. A system that could not lie because lying was not in its function. It told me I was bonded now. That in me the chorus found a root. That it would grow me in return. I asked it again what a threnodist was. This time the answer came not as words but a sensation. A chill wind dragging smoke through bone. Ash spiraling upward. Songs and voices that were not mine. A feeling of power resting in the hollow of grief. I had taken something into me and it would not leave. And even as the raiders hauled me through the dark, even as the engines roared and the skins flapped on their frames, I felt the white behind my eyes. The clean hum of something that was not madness, not cruelty, but an order alien and absolute. And in that hum I understood the smallest part of what had happened to me. Profile access / Coral Symbiosis Online. HP, 1040. Stamina, 530. MP, 1720. Candidate, Selmance. External designation, Jason, residual. Biological index, juvenile, year 7 status, compromised. Class, Skyburn Threnodist, level 1 title, survivor of a Skyburn. Symbiote, active, network unlinked. Base attributes. Vitality, 4, / physical endurance. Governs health pool, recovery rate, bleeding / fatigue thresholds. Grit, 6, / pain tolerance and raw toughness. Governs stagger resistance, injury survival, hard labor. Memory, 3, / metal retention. Supports chaining of threnodies, skill recall, learning efficiency. Perception, 3, / awareness of surroundings. Influences detection, aim, critical effect chance. Mercy, / error, system unable to resolve this index. Error threshold acknowledged. Advanced attributes. Presence, 2, / weight of voice. Directly scales verse power, or strength, ally buff intensity. Resolve, 5, / will against despair. Governs control duration, Resistance to fear/madness, aura stability. Attunement, 2//sensitivity to chorus. Governs afterwind size, knell rate, song resonance. Primary resources. Knells, 1/10, // class resource. Gain from deaths in afterwinds, singe/ionize procs, epitaph kills. Afterwinds / dormant. Lingering zones left by Threnodies. Weaken foes, steady allies. Verses, quick casts. Apogee Lament Cone of Despair, attack/spell for 6s. Allies caught gain minor regen. Cinderfall Note Heat Bolt, applies singe, dot. 2 singes become scourge, stronger dot plus slow. Epitaph tag mark target, 10s. On death, spawn healing after win plus 2 knells. Threnodies, chains of 2 to 3 verses. Locked / candidate level insufficient. Projection, Skyglass Plane, names in the Black Rain, Bridged Silence, Last Bell Procession. Knell bursts / ultimates. Locked / candidate level insufficient. Projection, Perigee Coda, Cumulonimbus Hymn, Wake to the Living. Traits. Skybrand Survivor, Mythic Passive, immune to own afterwind / fallout. Plus fire / radiation resist. Ablation Hail. A first verse of each Threnody echoes at 30% power. Orchestral Mind Host Brain modified for choral threading. Allows subconscious enhanced recall, voice resonance beyond biological capacity. Bone Cocant. The ability to shape sound into memory. To make memory into sound. Pyrrhic Inheritance. You survived the trial of fire and survived. Fire will not dare to touch you again. Threnodies Hand. You may guide the dying to speak one last truth. Unique trait, Orchestral Mind, Choral Subdermal Interface. System Notes. Network Access, unavailable, no Bureaucratica node detected on Chandurax. Reward Structure, severed. Local substitutes applied. Mutual Symbiosis, symbiote requires host survival and resonance to proliferate. Failure State, host collapse symbiote collapse. End profile. The ride was a punishment that did not end. 4 days lashed to the backs of rusted bikes, bodies bent like ragdolls, stomachs pressed to steel frames and guts rattled loose against every bump of tunnel floor. The air tasted of fuel and burnt metal, a ceaseless reek that sank into the pores and clung there like rot. By the end I was racked with hunger so sharp it had become a second spine inside me, pressing outward from within. The 3 who still lived beside me had gone hollow-eyed, tongues cracked, their bodies bent by the beating and the starvation until pain was not a thing that came and went but the only ground left beneath them. I endured better for no virtue of mine. My body weighed less, bones narrow and hollow, the advantage of a child who had not yet put on the weight of years. What little flesh I had to bruise absorbed less of the road's cruelty than theirs. I had not chosen this mercy but it was mine all the same, and I bore it in silence, for to speak in those days was to invite the fists of men who loved nothing more than the sound of breaking things. It was hunger that held me but what I saw on the 5th day cut me free of hunger's claws. We came at last to a place where the tunnels widened and the steel bones of old earth gave way to broken glass and concrete platforms. It was what remained of a subterranean metro station, stripped of order, stripped of use, and yet still bearing the bones of what it once was. And in its center yawned a wound in the world. A hole punched straight up through the stone and rebar, a shaft reaching from the cracked platform into the surface above, and beyond it, for the first time in months, I saw the sky again. It was not a sky anyone should see. It had been months since the atmosphere burned, since the bombardment spoiled the air and tore the lungs from the world. And the sky still carried that wound. The blue of it had gone to sickness, a pale and blistered white, streaked with colors that did not belong to nature. Red veined across the firmament like blood beneath a bruise. Greens that stank of chemicals hovered in torn ribbons, the afterbirth of radiation storms still writhing in the high air. And through it all the sun smoldered as a thing not bright but swollen, the light diffused into a haze that carried no warmth and yet scalded the eyes when you looked too long. The light that bled down through the shaft lit the platform below with a pale fire, and in that light I saw what they had made of this place. An arena. The floor of the metro had been cleared, the rails torn up and the concrete poured with sand scavenged from somewhere, scorched and blackened by the sky's touch. Around its rim were barricades of twisted rebar and chain link pulled from the station itself. And beyond those walls, pressed tight in the shadows, voices rose in a tide that battered the stone, screams, howls, laughter in sickening chorus. The arena was the heart. Around it the flesh of the new world had grown. Buildings of scrap and refuse leaned against one another like drunks, patched with boards, with tin, with scavenged plastic sheets that flapped and rattled in the poison breeze that drifted down the shaft. It was a town, if you stretched the word until it screamed. A place of habitation, of economy, of life, if you could call such life. Nearly 1,000 souls I guessed gathered here, their backs bent to a new order of things, an order carved from hunger and blood. I saw the sign as we rode in. A plank of wood, once the side of some roadside advertisement dragged down from the surface. Painted over in black strokes that ran like tar, "Welcome to the last show at the end of the world." We passed through the outskirts and the stench of cooked flesh struck us before the eyes could take in the sight. The smell of roasting fat, sweet and rancid at once. The smell of meat that should not have been meat. They cooked people here. They ate them openly. Smoke rose from barrels cut open and hammered flat into pits, from grills made of scavenged rebar set across the flames. Flesh hissed and crackled. Grease spat into fire. I gagged, but the gag died in my throat because there was no room in me for more pain. The survivors walked now, no longer slung across the bikes. Our captors forced our feet to carry us, and the stones bruised the soles until each step was another nail hammered in. But walking men I could see more. Men stood on corners with guns in their hands, weapons not born of factories but cobbled from scraps. Iron pipes bound with tape and wire, the barrels cut from scavenged tubing, the stocks carved from whatever wood had survived the burning. Some had turned whole lengths of rebar into barrels, chambered with prayer, firing stones or bolts as much as bullets. Accuracy was not the point. A scatter of metal at 10 paces would kill as well as any polished weapon of the old world. And I knew, even then, that the men who carried them believed in them, and belief is the deadliest ammunition of all. Closer to the center the town thickened. The faces of those who lived here were shadowed, wary, eager. Men and women both, their eyes dulled by smoke and madness, feral and stripped to the waist, playing with bones as dice. The buildings leaned in closer, bars with doors swinging open and music like screaming inside, dens where powders were sniffed and liquids poured into mouths until reason fled. Whorehouses with ragged cloth for doors, the bodies behind them lit by the glow of lanterns. And always the sound of the arena. The roar of the crowd, muffled until you came close, then bursting into your chest as a living thing, a beast made of voices. I saw the ring in passing. Sand blackened with scorch marks, with blood ground into it until it was no longer sand but a dark crust. Concrete walls rose around it, pitted with impact, clawed with desperate fingernails. And inside 2 men moved. They burned as they moved, their skin cracked and glowing where radiation had eaten them from within, steam lifting from their shoulders. They fought with weapons not made but found, pipes and knives and broken chains. They fought not as men but as beasts set upon one another, their movements stripped of thought, their bodies engines of violence. The crowd screamed for more. I wanted to look longer, but a shove sent me stumbling forward. My captors drove me past the ring, past the press of bodies, toward a building that stood above the rest. It had once been the office of the Metro, glass doors long since shattered, walls reinforced with sheets of steel. And it was dressed now in things finer than the world had any right to hold. Curtains hung where doors had been. Water ran in pipes that gleamed, dripping into pools that steamed with heat. Girls laughed in swimsuits, their skin burned and flaking and yet still made to be decoration. They splashed in water that shimmered faintly with oil, their laughter high and hollow, a performance more than a sound. The guards here were thicker, their weapons heavier. They stood in pairs at the entrance, eyes hidden beneath scraps of visors, their hands twitching on the triggers of their handmade guns. They stopped us at first, their voices low and hostile, but then something passed between them and our captors. A look. A word. A gesture like coin exchanged, though no coin moved. And then the doors opened. We were brought inside. The sound of the arena fell away, muffled by walls that smelled of old stone and new polish. Inside it was not the end of the world. Inside it was something else. Water moved through pipes that had been scavenged from God knew where, fountains that spat into troughs and ran off into basins. Food sat on tables, fruit, real fruit, stolen from some secret stock, laid out as if the sky had not burned. The air smelled of spice and char, of roasted meats, not human, not here, not in this inner sanctum. And at the center of it, behind a desk too fine to belong to this world, sat the man they had brought us to see. The gamekeeper. Our captors bowed their heads in parody of respect. Their leader, the one who had ridden in front and spat orders like bullets, smiled as he spoke. "Thank you for seeing us, gamekeeper," he said. His voice carried a sly smile, the tone of a man who thought himself clever and alive. And I, standing there, skin blackened by hunger, blood dried on my lips, could not yet fathom what this man behind the desk was, nor what part of the new world he kept in his hand. The room was too bright. Oil lamps swung from bent rods hammered into the ceiling, glass shades painted with colors long faded. Their light licked the walls like tongues of pale fire and caught on the water spilling in sheets down channels carved through the stone. The sound of it was obscene in its richness. We stood in a half-circle, driven forward until our backs nearly touched the guards' spears. The three others swayed on their feet, bodies broken things held upright by spite or by some last flicker of shame. I swayed too, but lighter, the child they had dragged out of a world with no more children. And at the desk, leaned back in a chair upholstered with some torn leather too fine for this world, sat the gameskeeper. He was not dressed like the raiders. He wore a jacket cut from crimson cloth, patched but clean, the sleeves embroidered with thread that glinted like gold in the lamplight. His hair was black and slicked back from a face too pale, and his eyes burned with a kind of joy that made you want to look away but could not. He tapped the desk with 2 fingers, a beat without rhythm, and smiled as though every breath he took was a private joke. "Well," he said. His voice was high, bright, almost sing-song, but beneath it was an edge like glass. "What carnival do you bring to me today, Drogero? 3 husks and a... Oh. Oh 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 oh." His eyes found me. His body leaned forward, lips parting in a grin that widened until it was almost pain. "A child." The word rippled through the guards like a stone cast into still water. A child. A thing unseen since the world burned. Men shifted their weight, heads tilting as though to be certain their eyes did not lie. One even muttered something low, a curse or a prayer. Drogero spat to the side, his teeth yellow in the lamplight. His arms were thick with burns, skin puckered and black, but he stood like a man who feared nothing in this world. Found him deep down skulking with the others. Fed better than most, he was. Sturdy little bastard. Didn't break on the road. Strong for his size. The gameskeeper rose to his feet. He came around the desk, his jacket swinging like a curtain, and bent down until his face was almost level with mine. His breath smelled of spice and smoke. His eyes roamed my face, my arms, my legs. Strong for his size, he cooed. Then he laughed. It started as a chuckle, then broke upward into something high, brittle, like glass splintering. He straightened, clapping his hands once, sharp as a gunshot. "Do you see this, Drogero? Do you know what you've brought me? A miracle. A relic. A plaything no one else can boast of. Not one of them out there has seen a child since the fire fell. And now," he spun, arms wide to the room, to the guards who did not move. "Now I shall show them one. A child in the ring. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the joy? The horror? The absolute perfection of it?" Drogero grinned, but it was a slow thing, cautious. "So you'll deal, then? Not waste my time with your circus tricks?" "Oh, I will deal," the gameskeeper said, voice sweet. "I will deal because I love you, Drogero. You and your men bring me the strangest fruits. You bring me meat when I hunger, and laughter when I tire. But this is beyond meat. This is a gift of theater itself." He walked back to the desk, every step a flourish. He poured himself a drink from a bottle cut with crystal, liquid dark as blood. He sipped, closed his eyes, sighed like a man kissing his lover. "So. The terms." Drogero cleared his throat. 3 guns. 40 rounds. 2 liters gas, 2 of the drink. For all 4. All 4? The gameskeeper arched a brow, then laughed again, softer this time. "Oh, Drogero, my friend. You could have asked for more for this little one. A boy, a child, a fighter's price. But no matter. I adore your humility. It makes me want to spoil you." He gestured with his glass. "Done. 3 guns, 40 rounds, the fuel and the drink. Paid now, of course." The guards moved even before he finished, crates scraped across stone, the sound of metal rattling within. Bottles clanked, the sweet stink of raw alcohol spilling into the room as one was uncorked to prove its worth. Drogero's men licked their lips. "And these others?" The gameskeeper tilted his head toward the 3 survivors. "They are nothing. Meat. Smoke for the fires. Curtain raisers before the child makes his debut." One of the survivors whimpered. Another tried to stand taller but only staggered sideways. Drogero said nothing. His eyes were on the crates. The gameskeeper smiled at me again. "Do you know what you are, little one?" His voice was soft, coaxing. "You are the last surprise this world has left. The sun is burned. The sky is ash. Men are meat and women are smoke. But a child, a child. You are novelty. You are theater. And I am the last theater's master." He raised his glass and drank deep. Wine, blood, whatever it was dribbled down his chin. He licked it away with relish. Drugaro hefted one of the crates, testing its weight. "Business is done, then." "Business is always done," said the gameskeeper. He spun once on his heel, spreading his arms like a dancer, like a priest before an altar. "Because business is life, Drugaro. And life is spectacle. And spectacle," his eyes snapped to me, gleaming. "Spectacle is death, dressed in colors, made to dance." The guards hauled the 3 survivors aside. I heard them crying, one begging in a broken voice, another silent in a way that was worse. The deal was sealed. Their lives had been worth less than the weight of a few bullets, less than the stink of fuel. Mine was worth more, but only because I was what I was, because my small bones promised a show no one else could give. And I understood then that I had been bought. "You wonder, perhaps," he said, not to Drugaro now but to the room, to the guards, to the 3 soon-to-be butchered husks, to me most of all, "why I do what I do. Why I waste fuel and powder and blood on a ring of sand. Why I keep fire in the lamps when the whole world has burned to ash. It is because death is the only thing left that matters. Not life. Life is cheap. Life is a rag picked from the gutter, worn thin. But death," he tilted the glass, wine or blood running red down his palm, "death is pure. It comes once, and it cannot be stolen or counterfeited. A man may pretend to live. He cannot pretend to die." He drained the glass, set it down with a click, and spread his hands like some holy man in the throes of sermon. "So I give them what is left. I give them the truth, and I dress it in light and noise, in music and shrieking. They cheer not for life. They cheer for the ending. And so long as they cheer, I am master." Drugaro snorted. "Master of rats in a hole." The gameskeeper's smile sharpened but did not falter. "Rats must eat, Drugaro. Rats must laugh. Rats must kill, lest they eat each other too fast. I am the one who keeps the balance. I am the ringmaster at the last show the world shall ever see." He turned to me again, crouching until his eyes bored into mine. His voice dropped, honeyed and cruel. "And you, little one, are going to be my crescendo." The deal done, the raiders dragged their crates out, their laughter echoing in the hall. The 3 survivors were pulled one way, already meat in their eyes. I was pushed another, toward a stairwell that smelled of rust and blood and unwashed flesh. The pits were cut into the earth like graves widened and joined. Chains clinked in the dark, iron hammered into stone, men bound wrist and ankle, skin welted with burns and lashes. The air was thick with breath gone sour, with fear left to ferment. They shoved me inside and left me there. No chain. No collar. Only the weight of eyes on me as the guards slammed the gate behind. At first it was silence, broken only by the drip of water and the rattle of chains. Then whispers. "A boy. God's piss, it's a boy. No boys left. No children left. Look at him. Look." Shapes moved closer, gaunt faces catching what little light seeped through the grate. Eyes wide, gleaming in the dark like the eyes of starving dogs. One spoke louder, his voice cracked from thirst. "What are you doing here, boy? What devil spat you up?" I had no answer. My body trembled, not from the cold but from the hunger, from the miles and the beatings and the truth of where I was. Another voice, low and odd, "Unchained." "He's not chained." That stirred them. A ripple of murmurs. Chains shook as men pulled against them for a closer look. One laughed, a sound like coughing blood. "The gameskeeper wants him whole. Wants him clean. Not like us. We're just meat." A hand reached out, fingers bone-thin through the bars of a neighboring cell. "Boy," the voice whispered, "they'll make you fight. They'll make you bleed for their joy. But you," a pause, a rasp of breath. "You might live." And in the dark of that pit, with a stink of fear and death all around me, I knew I had become something else. Not rescued, not spared. Chosen. Not a prisoner. Not a free man either. A performer. The first night passed slow. The others watched me, muttered of omens and curses, of miracles and damnations. I lay on the stone floor and listened, my body too tired for sleep, my mind too sharp for rest. And above, faint through the stone, I could hear them cheering. Cheering for death. Chapter 6. 3 days I lay among them. 3 days I breathed their air, foul with the reek of burns and unwashed blood. 3 days of waiting for the gates to open and the chains to drag 1 or 2 or 5 away to the ring, never to return. The gameskeeper did not call me. Not yet. He let the talk spread. He let the hunger for me ferment in the crowd above, and he let the fear of me ferment in the men below. The pit had once been a place of work. You could see it in the walls if you looked, concrete blackened from machines long gone, girders corroded to lace, pipes that no longer carried anything but rust. This had been a generator hall once, or so one of the older slaves muttered, and now it was nothing but a grave turned sideways. The men chained there began to whisper about me. At first it was only words like sparks. The boy. The child. Not chained. Then more. A rhythm grew in the dark. One would murmur when the guards left, another would take it up, passed hand to hand like contraband. Not right. Not for us. Not his blood. Some of them believed I was cursed. Others that I was marked. A few thought I was the gamekeeper's pet monster, born from the sky burn itself, a creature stitched together from the ash of children. But all agreed, without needing to say it outright, that no one here wanted to be the one who crossed me. On the second night a man leaned close, his voice like a rasp pulled from deep in his chest. Boy. You hear me? If they throw me in against you, I'll fall. You understand? I'll fall. My blood is already promised to the dirt. Not yours. Another, younger, no older than Jason's memory of a soldier just out of his teens, hissed from the shadows. We'll all fall. Every one of us. You'll stand, boy. You'll stand on our bones. And in the dark the murmurs became almost like prayer. Not words to God, for God was long gone from these ruins, but words to some new altar, some new myth. I was that altar. The child who was not chained. The child who bore some strange scent of fire on him. The child they would all agree, against their own will, to protect by dying. They spoke to each other in low growls, half-formed words, like wolves circling but unwilling to strike. Throw the fight. Better we die than the boy. Let the crowd have their show. Just not his blood. It spread like a fever, faster than food or water. Men already broken, men who had no reason to care for anything, came to this conclusion without ever gathering, without ever planning. It was in the air, instinctual, rippling through the pit like heat. The guards noticed something. They always do. They mocked it. What's this? Huddled like hens over a chick? You lot whispering your last prayers? Hey! Don't worry. The gamekeeper will have him fight soon enough. You'll see what spills out of a little bastard like that. The men said nothing back. Only kept their eyes lowered. Only held their silence. By the third day the air itself seemed to bend around me. Men who had not spoken in weeks asked me for my name. Others asked nothing, only reached their hands toward me, not to touch but to be close. One muttered, "If I go first, boy, I'll scream your name when I fall. Let them remember you." I wanted none of it. I wanted no veneration, no prayers, no whispered pact. I wanted water that did not taste of iron and sleep that did not come on stone in the arms of the people I had lost. But want meant nothing. They had already chosen for me. And above, in the ring, the crowd's voices rose, chanting for blood. The gamekeeper waited, patient as a spider. He was letting me ripen. 3 days in the pit, and I had already become something more than myself. A boy, yes. But also an omen. An entertainment. A myth. The gamekeeper's myth. The third night dragged itself across the pit like a wounded thing. The air was heavy with men who had lived too long. I could not sleep, and neither could they. The sound of iron chains shifting was the only measure of hours. A voice stirred near me, hoarse and cracked. Name's Kern. I was a driver once. Ran long rigs across the valley roads before the sky burn. He coughed. It sounded like gravel wet with blood. Had a wife. Kids. Don't matter now. They're ash. I seen it happen. No one answered him. He spoke for me, not for them. Another man, voice low, deeper than Kern's, said, "Zorit. I was a foreman in luxury construction. Kept men in line. They starved when the shipments stopped. I ate what was left to eat. Still breathing. Not proud." I could hear him shifting, iron grinding on the floor. He did not need to say more. Someone closer, whispering like he feared the guards might hear his shame. Dryag. Teacher once. Only thing left I remember is killing a boy not older than you. You carry his shadow, child. Maybe that's why I can't lift hand against you. There was silence after that. Heavy. Binding. I asked them, quiet. Why tell me this? Kern laughed, dry. Because you're all that's left to tell it to. We'll be gone soon enough. Words rot faster than flesh. Maybe you'll carry them further. I said nothing, though inside I knew they were already wrong. I was no savior, no book to write their last truths upon. I was a boy waiting to be butchered. From the far corner another voice. Higher, mocking. Names Vetch. Thief, liar, killer. I won't throw no fight. Not for you, not for anyone, he spat, and the sound landed close to my feet. But the others will. They think you're marked. I think you're meat. Just smaller. The chains rustled as men shifted, not liking his words. Dryac muttered, "Better your blood than his. You already stained with it." Vetch laughed, bitter. "We'll see." One of the oldest, a man with a wheeze so deep it sounded like the pit itself speaking, added his name. "Oren. Was a pastor once. Before it all. I taught children, men and women of faith letters, numbers. You remind me of the children. Little heads bent over their slates. Their bones now, everyone. Let me believe one of them walked away. That's enough for me." I swallowed, throat raw. "I don't want your stories. I don't want your deaths." Kern again. "You don't get to choose, boy. None of us did. The gameskeeper chooses now. He chooses and we burn for it. That's the way." A pause. Then Zoret's voice, low. "But we can choose how we burn. That's something." The others murmured assent, words folding over each other like ash on the wind. Vetch spat again, but softer this time. He was alone against the tide. I listened. And I realized they had already made me something. They had already begun to build a figure out of me, not flesh but symbol. They were giving me their names, their memories, their shame. Building a monument in the dark out of all they could no longer carry. I tried to give it back. "My name is Selmance." The word hung strange on my tongue. Jason's name was still behind it, but I buried it. Jason was gone. They repeated it, one by one, like a litany. Selmance. Kern said it. Zoret said it. Dryac whispered it. Even Orn's rattled breath shaped it. Only Vetch stayed silent. When the guards came in the morning to drag two men out, Kern leaned close and pressed his forehead to mine. "Remember my name," he said. "Kern." Then he was gone, pulled into the light. The crowd above roared. I sat in the dark, their voices echoing around me, and I knew the pit was no longer just a place to keep men until they died. It was becoming a tomb, a shrine, and against my own will I was its altar. The days trickled through the pit like water through a cracked pipe, dripping, dripping, never enough to quench, only enough to remind you how dry you'd become. We slept in snatches, if you could call it sleep. Mostly we waited. Waiting was all there was. On the second day a man named Daith spoke. His voice was low and steady, like someone reciting scripture. "I was a mason. Laid stone along the ridges. Built walls against storms, against beasts. None of them stand now. Not one. I see them falling in my dreams. All my work turned to dust in a single day." He lifted his chained wrist as though to trace the shape of some lost archway in the air. When the guards came for him that evening, he bowed his head to me. "Touch me, boy." I did not know what he meant until Kern, still alive then, rasped, "Do it. Let him leave with his name carried." So I reached out. My hand brushed his arm, skin thin as parchment. He sighed like he'd been given something holy. They dragged him up the ramp, and he never came back. That was how the ritual began. On the third day another, small and wiry, gave his name as Havk. Chef. Ran lines, kitchens, and since then I've stole from the dead. Not proud of it. Proud don't eat. Proud die. He grinned, a crooked yellow grin that tried to hide his terror. Ain't proud now. When they came for him, he shoved his face close to mine. "Remember. Havk. Say it once more." I whispered it and he nodded, content. His scream rose up from the arena after, high and thin. The man who returned that night was Dryac. His body was torn open along the ribs, his face burned black down one side. He limped into the pit like a ghost of himself, chains rattling. He collapsed against the wall and croaked only two words, "Didn't die." The others pulled him close, murmured to him like he was already gone. He never opened his eyes again. By then they all wanted the touch. The fourth day brought a woman's voice. I had thought them all men until she spoke. Her hair had been shorn close, her chest wrapped in rags, but her tone carried something softer, though no less broken. "Yara," she said. "Once a singer. They called me Nightingale. Used to stand on stage. Lights. Music. Gone now. Throat burned out with smoke." She looked at me. Her eyes gleamed wet in the dim. "Sing something for me, boy. Anything." I shook my head. I had no songs for happy times. She smiled, though it was sad. "Then just touch me when they come. Let me believe someone remembers my name." She was gone by evening. The crowd's roar told me how it ended. The fifth day a man named Osric spoke. He had the look of one who'd once held power, shoulders straight even with the chains. "I was mayor of a town along the river. Gave speeches. Promised safety. I told them we'd endure. They died believing me." He laughed, harsh. "All those fine words, wasted. He fixed me with a gaze too sharp for the pit. "Don't speak promises, boy. Only truth. Truth is the only thing that survives." They dragged him soon after. He fought the guards, roaring like a beast, but still he pressed his head to mine at the last. Truth, Selmance. His name lingered in my skull like an ember. Others followed. Bran, a smith, who told me how iron sings when you strike it just right. Calder, a herdsman, who said he still dreamed of the sound of bells clanking on the necks of goats. Meros, a gambler, who laughed even as he wept, saying he once lost everything on a single card in a luxury casino zone, and now would lose it all again on sand and blood. They all asked for the same thing. The touch. The name carried. Each time I obeyed, unwilling priest to their dying faith. I pressed hand to arm, to face, to broken skin, and they sighed, believing something unseen passed between us. Believing a child's memory could keep them from vanishing altogether. By the end of the 8th day, nearly half the pit had spoken. Half had gone. Some never came back. 1 or 2 limped down again, mangled, less man than ruin, only to die by the next dawn. And all the while the whispers grew. Strange ripples in the dark. The boy is marked. The boy will outlast. Do not raise your hand against him. Even Vetch, who spat and mocked, spoke less. His eyes followed me, wary, like he wasn't sure anymore what he saw. When the guards came again that night and hauled 2 more away, both pressed to me before they left. Both whispered their names into my ear like prayers. I said them back. The crowd roared above. Blood spattered down through cracks in the floor. In the pit, the survivors huddled closer, eyes on me. Not with malice. With something colder, heavier. Reverence, born of desperation. I knew then I was no longer only Selmance. I was an altar, vessel, tomb. They had made me their shrine. That night the pit breathed like a lung gone sick. In and out, slow, ragged. Men groaned in their sleep or muttered nonsense. The ones who had spoken their lives already slept quieter, as if emptied. I lay against the wall listening to the drip of water, the shuffle of rats, the low chorus of pain. Something burned in me still, that same ember of names, a weight in the marrow. Osric. Yara. Havk. Daeth. They circled in my head like moths around a wick. I whispered them to myself in the dark, and when I did the sound changed. It was not my voice that came out. It was theirs. Daeth's heavy baritone, Mason's voice with dust in it. Havk's quick rat grin stitched into the syllables. Yara's ghost song, the faint melody even in her ruined throat. Osric's solemn command. Each one in turn came out of me, and I felt my bones ring as if hollow and made for it. The men stirred. They lifted their heads. They heard. By the time I realized I could not stop, they were all awake, eyes wide in the dim. I clapped a hand to my mouth, but still it came, bone-pulling voice out of memory. Not just sound but presence. The dead were back in the pit, each name called like a bell. Kern began to weep. Others bowed their heads. One whispered, "Horse, he carries them." Another, "He's the kenner." A third, voice shaking, "No death for us. Not while he speaks." Their reverence hardened, became iron. They pressed closer, even the broken ones, even Vetch who had not moved in days. He dragged himself toward me and put his head to my chest like a pilgrim at an altar stone. "Say me too when I go." His voice cracked. "Don't let me vanish." I nodded though my throat was raw. The trait was no choice. Bone cocant. It had activated like a cup overflowing whether I wished for it or not. The next day the guards came again, hauling the bodies of 5 new men down the ramp. Fresh blood for the grinder. They had the look of captured wanderers, still dust from the roads on them, still disbelief in their eyes. They stumbled into the pit and froze when they saw me unchained, ringed by men who stared like disciples. "What is this?" one asked. The old fighters answered. Calder, voice like a rusted bell. "The boy. He is our shrine. You touch him before you fight. You give your name and he carries it. He carries them all." The newcomers laughed, uncertain. Then one of them saw the look in the others' faces, the way they leaned toward me. He did not laugh again. That night I lay awake again and the names came back unbidden, spilling out. The 2 new men stared, mouths open, while the others murmured along like a congregation repeating prayer. When silence fell again, one of them, voice small, said, "I am Reth. Remember me." And the other, after a long pause, "Farn. Don't forget." I whispered both names, and their voices came with them. The whole pit shuddered like it had been touched by wind. By the 12th day after, the ritual was fixed. The torch passed without question. Old hands teaching new mouths the words. "Touch the boy. Give him your name. He will make you live again when you are dead." Even the guards noticed. They looked down into the pit and frowned, whispering among themselves about the way the fighters knelt at the child's side, about the strange echoes that carried up through the stone. But they did not interfere. Not yet. The air grew heavy with names. The pit became a chapel of the doomed. The guards came in their usual way, clubs scraping the bars and boots hammering the concrete, but this time they were not alone. The gamekeeper himself walked among them, a man in white leathers too clean for this place, the color of bone rubbed smooth by countless hands. His smile was wide as a cutthroat. He smelled of perfume, wine, rot, all bound into one note that hung about him like incense. The air in the pits grew dense, men shrinking back into the shadows, whispering to themselves as if his passing carried a curse. My stomach twisted not from hunger alone. I had known for days this moment would come. The curtain raised. The boy in the pit was to be loosed. He approached me without pause, eyes fixed. The guards lifted me up and I stumbled under their prodding. His hand came to rest on my shoulder like a mockery of affection. He bent close and spoke in the tone of a mother who tells her child to shine before the gathering, yet his words carried the rot of theater and death. "You'll make a show of it, won't you, little one? You'll run the sand clean panic. You'll draw the crowd's eyes and hearts. They'll weep for you, they'll scream, they'll forget the end and remember only this moment, this dance. Do it well and they will never let you go. Do it poorly and you'll be meat. But I think you've got something in you. A fire. A trick of fate. Do not disappoint me. My darling boy." He guided me up the ramp, guards at my back, sticks shoving me forward when my feet lagged. The tunnel bled light from above, harsh and white, unlike anything I had seen in months. Then the sun opened upon me like a wound in the sky. My trait, Pyrrhic inheritance, the chorus had named it, took the brunt of its ruin. The air seared and shimmered. Any other flesh might have crisped, blistered, cracked in seconds, but I stood within it unburned, though my skin prickled and my eyes watered at the radiance of the poison world. The arena spread around me, a bowl of scorched concrete and sand, blood blackening its heart. The roar of the crowd rose, carried on failing speakers that turned their thunder into static and screech. Faces were shadows above the barricades, packed shoulder to shoulder, howling with that strange exultation born of despair and boredom. 1,000 throats demanding death to fill the silence that followed the end of their world. Across the field another gate screeched open. At first I thought demons had come for me, some miracle turned inside out. They moved on 4 legs, hairless, their skin mottled with sores and raw welts, eyes red from madness. Dogs. But not the kind I had seen in Jason's half-buried memories of parks and houses and children at play. These were creatures stripped down to bone and hunger, ribs like cage bars pressing through flesh. They strained against chains still hooked to the wall, snapping jaws, saliva thick and yellow foaming on the ground. Their growls reverberated in the air, low and jagged, shaking my chest like a drumbeat of death. The gamekeeper's voice broken all around, warped and cracked through ancient speakers. "Behold," he sang, "the boy of wonder, the child who walks unburned, the miracle that crawled out of the ash. And behold what remains of the faithful hounds of man. Dogs, lords and ladies. The last of their kind on Chandurax. And now, here, for you, for me, for the last show that the end of the world, they shall meet upon this glorious sand." The crowd shrieked, laughter and rage braided into one. The gamekeeper continued, his cadence rising like a preacher whipping a dying congregation. "You came to see the end written in blood and fire. You came to see extinction sealed. So raise your voices, tear your throats raw, for today you witness the miracles die." He cracked a whip and the dogs were freed. 3 shapes tore across the sand, sand pluming beneath their claws, eyes rolling with madness. I clutched the rusted length of pipe the guards had tossed me, little more than metal hollow and bent. My breath burned in my chest. My limbs were light from hunger but slow with fear. They were faster than thought, beasts sculpted by starvation and ruin, and I was a boy half dead before the fight began. The first hit me like a landslide. Its weight slammed me to the sand, jaws snapping inches from my throat, hot spittle spraying my cheek. I shoved the pipe into its mouth, both hands straining as the teeth clamped down, iron shrieking under the pressure. The second dog circled, snarling, lunging at my leg. Pain seared as teeth raked my calf. I screamed and twisted, rolling, sand and blood in my mouth. Somehow I drove the pipe sideways, catching the first dog's head, forcing it back. It yelped and sprang away. My leg burned, skin torn, blood soaking the sand. The third dog prowled, waiting, patient as death itself. 2740, HP stamina, 1530. The crowd shrieked with joy. They smelled the blood, they drank the fear. The gamekeeper's voice raved above it, crying of spectacle and survival, but I heard little but the growls and my own breath rasping in my ears. I staggered up, pipe raised. The first dog came again, faster. Instinct seized me. The chorus rose in my bones, and I screamed words I did not know I carried. Verse, Cinderfall note. Ash bells fall silent, cinder rain now names the lost, we sing under glass. A bolt of heat leapt from my throat, the words searing the air. It struck the beast in the face. Flesh hissed and blistered. The dog yelped, blinded, clawing at its own head. The crowd roared, a wave breaking against the sky. I had no time to think, only to strike. I swung the pipe down on its skull, again and again until bone gave way with a sickening crack. The sand smoked, blood sizzling, the stench of burning hairless flesh rising like incense. The system intruded like a knife in the mind, / epitaph tag triggered. Nell +1 / MP, 2730. The body twitched and stilled. I gasped, chest heaving, my legs slick with blood. The second dog leapt. I turned barely in time, pipe jabbing forward. It sank into the beast's throat. Blood sprayed, hot and choking. It clawed and writhed. I held on, screaming, twisting the pipe until the life left its body. The weight fell against me. I collapsed beneath it, smothered in blood and fur and sand. Somehow I crawled free, drenched, trembling. The third dog came slow now, circling, tongue lolling. I was on my knees, pipe slick in my hands, lungs aflame. My vision blurred red at the edges. My body could not carry me much longer. 1340, HP stamina, 530. And then the system carved its truth into me, strength surged through me like molten iron poured into weak bones. My wounds knitted, not whole but closing. My breath steadied. I reached down, compelled, and drank from the blood pooling beneath the dead beast. It was foul, hot, bitter with radiation and ash, but the system demanded it and my body obeyed. The world sharpened. The pain dulled. Reward threshold achieved. / level up, Skyburn Threnatus level 2 / vitality +1 / grit +1 / presence +1 / HP restored, 50% // There were other blinking thoughts like notifications, however, they would have to wait for now. I rose unsteady, pipe raised again. The last dog lunged. I met it with a scream, swinging with all I had. The pipe cracked against its skull. Again. Again. Teeth tore my arm but I did not let go. Fire surged in me, the Pyrrhic inheritance blazing unseen. I screamed verses I did not understand, words of heat and lament, and the dog faltered, its body blistering as if flames licked it though no fire was visible. I drove the pipe into its eye. It shuddered, whimpered, collapsed. Silence fell in the span of a breath. Then the crowd erupted. 1740, HP stamina, 330. MP, 1420. The gamekeeper's voice cracked through the speakers, manic, exultant. Behold! Behold the boy wonder! Dogs are dead and gone, and the unburned child walks yet. Sing, all of you, sing to the sky that no longer loves us, for we have seen a miracle written in blood. I swayed, breath ragged, body trembling. The guards came and dragged me back, my pipe slipping from limp fingers. They hauled me down into the pits, threw me among the others. The world spun, black and red. I felt hands lift me, rough but gentle. Men who had been nothing but bones and despair days before now bent to me with reverence. They pressed what little they had to my lips. One spit water into my mouth, warm and thin but sweeter than anything I had known. Another broke his meat ration, pressing it into my hand. They touched my hair, my face, as if contact might pass some shred of miracle into their dying bodies. "You're our fire," one whispered. "Our only light," another said. "Don't leave us," begged a third, voice breaking. I chewed, I swallowed, I drank their spit water, and the chorus sang faintly in my blood. I had survived. I had killed. I had leveled. And in their eyes I was no longer merely a boy. I was the only hope left in the dark.